Welcome to Entrepreneurship Networking Program. Your host, Mwila Jonathan Puku, and tonight we'll be talking about business integration between Zambia and USA markets. And to help us with the topic, we are joined by Mr. George Mtonga, Zambian based in America, economist, financial analyst, international entrepreneur, and business blogger. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
We're
Thank you, my brother.
Okay. We're very blessed to have you here. And actually, this is something that most MSMEs have actually been waiting for, of course, to expand their businesses actually beyond even Africa. Right. So it's actually very, very good that you've come here to actually help us. We will just quickly come in. All those people are asking who's actually George Mtonga. For those that do not know you, so briefly give us a history about yourself. Who's George Mtonga?
Well, I was born in Ndola. I grew up in Masala compound with my grandmother. I went to school at Leone Primary School and then came to Lusaka, went to Olympia Basic School, went back to Ndola, and I finished my grade 7 on the Copper Belt. That's when I left for the USA for high school. And from 12 to 13, just grew up in the USA. I finished high school in the USA. Did my university education in USA at Hunter College. I majored in economics, political science, and I studied a lot of philosophy. And then after that, I worked for an investment firm, Goldman Sachs, as an analyst. Then I worked independently for some time as a consultant. Then I joined an insurance company on the financial analysis side. Maybe about 3-4 years ago, I decided now to just venture on my own, and that's when I launched Mtonga Group. Yes. Okay. Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow, that's very brilliant. You're speaking about Mtonga Group.
Yes.
Of course, we obviously need to. What we need to find out is what is Mtonga Group about?
So what I use Mtonga Group as a company is I raise money from my own resources as well as different partnerships, and then we engage in businesses. Businesses can range from technology, IT startups. It can be as traditional as farming. It can be as outrageous as nightclubs. But the idea is having an investment approach that allows you to leverage your existing assets to continuously borrow money and continuously expand. The idea is that the more you borrow, the more you invest, the more you increase your assets. Therefore, you can leverage those assets to borrow more money again. So that's kind of what I do.
No, I like the fact that you've actually touched very sensitive sectors. Actually, there's technology, there's different investments, there's assets and all those things. That's actually very, very good and recommendable. How do you think Mtonga Group, this is where I'm more interested, how do you think Mtonga Group is helping Zambian SMEs or individual Zambians access the USA market and business community?
For the most part, my greatest desire, my greatest vision is creating an infrastructure that would allow businessmen and women in Zambia who've never gone anywhere else outside Zambia source capital out of the United States. Because in Zambia, capital is extremely expensive. For whatever reasons, it can be risk. The banks will do their own analytics on risk. But my thing is, there are companies that are extremely profitable right here in Zambia that I feel, if exposed to the United States, have the necessary P&L and asset infrastructure to borrow money from the United States. There are a lot of compliance and legal issues surrounding that, but that's always been my greatest vision. So for the most part right now, beyond tapping into the banks, I would end up using my assets in the USA to borrow money and then lend it back to Zambia. That's the only way the structure would work right now. We've done several things like that where, I've borrowed money in the USA and I'm investing in things in Zambia. Especially this year, I'm extremely obsessed with farming. Cattle, cows, goats, pigs, whatever it is, I'm throwing money in there. It's within our diversification strategy, like just to have an asset class like that. But that's my greatest desire is to get to a level where somebody from Zambia can apply for a loan directly to the USA.
Okay.
And we have a barrier that affords them some type of collateral.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's kind of how we would end up working.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you brought in farming and you're actually obsessed in actually trying to bring up that sector. Just recently, I just had very young graduates from India.
Right.
Yes. Some have done economics, some have done actually computer science. But now they've gone and opened a cooperative that's actually doing farming, and they're trying to come up with a conference. So I like the fact that people are now engaging into farming.
Yes.
It's not about, no, it's for people that are retired.
Yes.
That's a good business, and also, for the food support.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I'll come talking about the food support. Also, what are your thoughts on the cost of doing business in Zambia for indigenous MSMEs and also just for foreign businesses?
Both business and political. I think I'm going to make two statements. I think Zambia, we tend to make things very difficult for indigenous Zambians.
Okay.
Like regular Zambians will have a hard time getting things done, whereas foreign people, will experience far much more expediency. The cost of doing business in Zambia is outrageously high. You see?
Okay.
Let me just give you one quick scenario. Somebody just wants to do advertising, just the fuel price.
Yeah.
Just forget any other expense. Just you getting out of your house and going to a place for a meeting is already a barrier for you. Why? Because prices are high.
Yeah.
The cost of capital is outrageously high. The transaction time for permits, getting your permit, getting your approval. Like, look at the process of somebody getting a title for land. Just that headache. And now, mind you, you already have capital. You want to build a farm with 1,000 cows. And it's taking you time to process your title. Something that we do consistently, we should have at the least automated that process where, for the most part, it should take you 3 weeks if you have all your documents. So I wouldn't have a favorable position when it comes to the cost of doing business in Zambia. It's extremely high. It's a huge deterrent for a lot of entrepreneurs, young people, because remember, young people haven't even yet established their reputation to collect capital from people. So chances are they are starting with their own money. Chances are they are starting with a small loan. You see, there are these outrageous interest rates, like 30% a month, and somebody needs to do a business that's barely generating those types of profits. So I genuinely do believe that the government has to step in. It's not just throwing booster loans. No, actually create a structure where entrepreneurs are not entirely dependent on the government for them to succeed.
Perfect. And well put and articulated. And this is something that actually would be very good for you, the fact that you're an international entrepreneur.
Yes.
You're a Zambian, of course, but you also invest in America, also investing in Zambia.
Yes.
But then also looking at when it comes here in Zambia, how do you think is the best model of FDI, meaning the foreign direct investment, into Zambia? And what challenges do you think Zambia may be having to easily have it?
I think in Zambia, we are generally sold a dream when it comes to foreign direct investment. We hear people say there's a commitment of $1 billion coming into the country, and we register that amount as FDI. But when in reality, only $200 million actually comes in and circulates in the economy, and the $200 million is then leveraged, and these guys start borrowing money from our banks in order for them to pursue whatever $1 billion investment they were looking at.
Local banks.
Exactly, local banks. So in that particular case, your FDI is not $1 billion. Your FDI is $200 million. The problem I feel is that we have politicians that are extremely excited in saying we received this amount of FDI or this amount of commitments when it comes to investments. But in actual reality, if I had to track $100 with a serial number, I had to track that $100 from where it came from and how it moves in Zambia, you will see that there's no actual value. Maybe it doesn't even land in Zambia. It lands somewhere else. Somebody gets paid in an account outside Zambia, but they do the work in Zambia.
Okay.
There's no value in that.
Yeah.
You see? But for all intended purposes and data and all that stuff, we'll register it as FDI.
Okay.
For me, FDI has to be money in Zambia. Money that's paying salaries, money that's buying from vendors in Zambia.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? And if money is buying equipment, that equipment has to come into this country.
Okay.
You see? That way we can use it. Obviously, we would hire people to use the equipment and do all those things. So I am a little bit stringent when it comes to FDI, and I don't think right now or even in the previous government, people are actually looking at the actual numbers. I need numbers. I need money in Zambia, not just lip service on what type of foreign direct investment is coming in the country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just on that, what challenges do you think Zambia might have now? Of course, there is a part of FDI, the model that you're talking about, where it's partial, partial investment.
Yes.
But then there's some FDI we're looking forward, but they're not happening in Zambia. What do you think some of the investors out there might be having a problem in investing in Zambia? What do you think might be the challenge? Some investors are coming into Zambia.
I think it's just generally when it comes to investing in a country, you look at the country's risk profile.
Okay.
You look at political stability. You look at transparency. So pretty much think of it like this. If you have a company, what are the things you need to do to attract investors?
Yeah.
On a country level, that's what we need to do. The challenges are, like what we just said, high cost of doing business.
Okay.
Why would I bring money in Zambia if it's going to cost me a lot of money before I even start my business? I've already spent 50% of my money. When I can go to Botswana and within 10% of my capital allocation, I can start a business. Yeah. So Zambia, in this particular case, has to improve itself. First and foremost, political stability. I need to make sure that you're not going to have a politician who one day wake up and say, my company is this company. Making sure that there is transparency in terms of how the government is run, it just creates a sense of safety for an investor. People can make money, a lot of money in Zambia, but from somebody outside. For me, I'm Zambian, so I'm willing to take the risk. But for somebody who doesn't have that national attachment to Zambia, you need to give them a profile that allows them to bring in money in this country and also make profit.
Okay.
Yes.
No, as I said, well articulated. Just on that issue of capital and investment, there's an issue of having or raising capital for SMEs. As you know, obviously that's a big issue that has been happening in the country for a long time. So as an international entrepreneur, what is your advice on some of the ways how they can easily access this capital?
Well, they can't necessarily easily access capital because the collateral structure generally don't favor them. You see, if you've been in business for years, you have land, you have buildings, you can always leverage that to access capital if you want to expand. But the typical SME is a group of young, intelligent Zambians who have an idea and they need help. That's it. They don't have money, they don't have collateral, but they have an idea. So from that perspective, it's the government coming in. Because the government can take a risk on Zambians who do not have collateral. You're collecting taxes. I can easily allocate $300 million to support SMEs because they do not have the collateral. So you can't say that an SME is just going to walk into a bank and get some money out. No, they're not going to do that. So in this particular case, the burden is on the Zambian government. They have to create a fund that supports SMEs access capital. It doesn't mean that every SME is going to succeed. But the idea of progress is taking that risk. And as a government, I think, what better risk can you take than your own people? Out of that group, we should be able to get a few companies that become big. Because I've noticed in the United States of America, I've seen that some people, probably even Bill Gates, he didn't actually have
collateral to get, people invested.
Yes.
I think that's what we're having problem in Zambia somehow. We've got innovation.
Yes.
A bank won't just come and say, okay, we're gonna.
No, they're not.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I actually understand and get that. That's a big challenge actually we're having, and we put that pressure on the government.
No, 100% on the Zambian government.
Yeah.
I do not see anybody resolving this issue other than the Zambian government.
All right.
Yeah.
Speaking of capital, obviously there's this issue of IMF.
Yes.
Has come to help Zambia amidst the debt stress in the country.
We have to put help in quotation marks.
Okay,
yes.
Help, of course.
Yes.
How do you think this help is actually, let me put it like, this loan is actually going to help Zambia at the moment?
The traditional experience of most countries with the IMF in Africa has been extremely disastrous. But for the most part, it's you get yourself into that situation. When you tap into the IMF, they are giving you money with specific conditionalities, and those conditions may not necessarily reflect what the country needs. They are giving you conditions based purely on their ability to get their money back. You see, like for example, one of the reasons why fuel is extremely up is because one of the conditions is that we shouldn't subsidize fuel. We were paying cheaper fuel because it was being subsidized by the government. But as a result of those subsidies, we started increasing our debt. Okay. So pretty much we were living a lifestyle we couldn't afford. Okay. You see, so when we get ourselves to that situation, we now have to run to the IMF. But when the IMF comes, they're not necessarily here to help you. They're here to make you do things so that they can get their money back. Okay. You see what I'm saying? Yes. So it's, yes, there won't be interest and all that stuff, but at the same time, we can still find ourselves on the winning side of this situation. Okay. And the reason why I say we can find ourselves on a winning situation is simply we need to start learning to pay for bills we can afford. If we can't afford it, don't consume it. As a country, that's it. If we, like there's a lot of infrastructure going on. Yes. There were cases where our parents could have finished building houses when we were young. But because they were investing in us going to school and having proper health, they neglected that. There are certain achievements we simply have to say will be done by our children. But we need to live within our means so that the burden on our children is not too much. So that's the way I look at the IMF. The IMF is a problem we got ourselves into. It's not people you want to be in your country at all. Okay. Yeah.
So George, as we come to the end of the program, what closing remarks would you have for entrepreneurs, especially the youth, that want to engage in various businesses? The fact that obviously you started your business as a youth, you've seen the challenges, both in Zambia and obviously in America, and you've done pretty good for yourself. I just want to see and actually, what do you have for those that actually want to go into businesses, especially the youth?
I think I work a lot with youths, with young people, and I don't feel that at this point I have anything to say to them because they are extremely outstanding. All the youths that I work with, that I've talked with, they're coming up with business ideas, they're coming up with concepts, they're coming up with solutions. I think for me, my message is to the Zambian government. You have an entire group of, an entire generation that's extremely intelligent. They are coming up with ideas, whether it's fixing problems in health, fixing problems in education. I was recently talking to a friend of mine. He's developed a concept that would allow our children to be tutored online using the internet. There are people that are coming up with extremely progressive business ideas. So it's not about whether the youths are achieving or they have ideas. They do have ideas. I think for us in this country, it's about the Zambian government stepping up, recognizing, because there are kids where they come in with a technology for the Ministry of, say, maybe agriculture. They propose and they can't get a tender to actually push that. You see, I feel if we had an allocation of tenders to the youths, then we'll start flowing capital to them so that now they can experiment with different ideas. But this entire issue that we're dealing with, this entire issue of capital and our youth not being able to secure capital to advance their ideas, the Zambian government is the one that needs to fix it.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, okay. Yeah. That's Mr. George Mtonga. Impactful knowledge there, about business, about also he spoke about what the government needs to do to actually help the business community. I must say thank you, Mr. George.
Thank you very much,
and we're blessed to have you.
Thank you
for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, viewers. See us next time. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you very much.